After being reborn, I decided to return my fiancé to his first love. When he held a singles party for his first love and didn't want me to disturb them, I went to France alone. He said he was annoyed to see me, so I resigned quickly. He felt uncomfortable staying in the same country with me, so I immediately moved abroad. Finally, he wanted to give his first love more sense of security. I nodded and accepted someone else's proposal. I listened to his words again and again only because of my past life. After I married him, his first love slit her wrists and committed suicide in despair. He blamed me for breaking them up, skinned me, cramped my muscles, and drained the blood from my body. This time, I just want to live well. Later, when our family of 3 were walking, he knelt in front of me, crying his heart out. Isabella, as long as you leave them, I will be with you properly. Isabella, Lucas is holding a singles party for Juliet tonight. Aren't you going? Hearing my name, I suddenly woke up. I looked at the speaking friend in confusion, and the friend looked at me worriedly. Did you quarrel with Lucas recently? You seem to be out of your mind these days. I shook my head. At this time, the phone rang. It was Lucas's call. Seeing the familiar number, I felt a pang of sadness in my heart. After a while, I answered the phone. Lucas's voice on the other end of the phone was distant and strange. He said blandly, Juliet just broke up with her boyfriend. We won't bring any family members to the party tonight. I don't want Juliet to be sad because of you. I bit my lip hard, and the smell of blood in my mouth kept reminding me. I didn't hear what Lucas said at the other end, but I couldn't listen to a word. I interrupted Lucas and forced myself to endure the pain in my heart. Pretending to be calm, I said, I see. I won't disturb you. Besides, I need to go to France on business for work. Hearing my words, Lucas was stunned for a moment. Perhaps this time, I didn't argue with him as before about why I couldn't appear in front of Juliet, which made Lucas a little surprised. After a few seconds, Lucas's tone softened a little. You are sensible. But my heart was extremely sad and I tried my best to hold back my tears until I finally held them back. The friend beside me also looked at me in surprise. I know why she was strange. After all, I loved Lucas so much that I lost myself. But this time I didn't hysterically quarrel with Lucas, nor did I feel at a loss or worry about gains and losses because of his and Juliet's affairs. The friend looked at my ugly face but didn't say anything more, just sighed. She poured me a cup of hot water. After drinking a cup of hot water, my cold body felt a little warmer. I smiled at my friend, packed up the things on the table, and began to book a plane ticket. The friend asked, Are you really going to France? I answered in a low voice. My voice was a bit dull. I have wanted to go to France for a long time. This time I have the opportunity, so I want to go and have a look. Looking at my friend's worried face, I smiled at her soothingly and then hugged her tightly. The warm body temperature made me couldn't help crying. She didn't know why I suddenly became so decadent, but she still gently patted my back and comforted me softly. I said softly, I don't want to love Lucas anymore. I'm so tired. The friend didn't know what happened, but still followed my words and said, Then congratulations on your new life. My tears fell straight down. The friend didn't know that I had died once and it was God's mercy that made me reborn. This time, I just want to live well. In my past life, on the day I married Lucas, Juliet slit her wrists and committed suicide in the hotel. Lucas left me alone at the wedding scene and ran to find Juliet. I originally thought that Juliet's death would become an indelible thorn between Lucas and me. Seeing Lucas's distraught appearance because of Juliet's death, my heart also felt very uncomfortable, but when I was ready for Lucas and I to separate because of this matter, Lucas hugged me and said, Isabella, I only have you. After marriage, Lucas was very kind to me. He put me first in everything and didn't let me do any housework at home. That he always took care of everything by himself. No matter how busy he was at work, he would come home on time to have dinner with me every day. Even the secretary around him was male. He said he didn't want to cause unnecessary misunderstandings and troubles. My friends all envied me for meeting such an extremely good man. I also felt very lucky that I could meet Lucas in my life. But on the 10th anniversary of our marriage, I died at the hands of Lucas. He blamed me for breaking them up, skinned me, cramped my muscles, and drained the blood from my body. So when I found that I was reborn, I just wanted to stay away from them and live well. Even though I had made a lot of mental preparations, seeing Lucas in high spirits still made my heart ache. He and Juliet were standing downstairs in the company. Lucas's eyes looking at Juliet were as soft as water. Seeing me walking downstairs, Lucas's face changed slightly, and he looked at Juliet worriedly. I looked at Lucas and suddenly remembered. In my past life, I had always quarreled with Lucas because of Juliet. When the quarrel became fierce, Lucas would look at me disappointedly and say, "Juliet and I are just friends now. She is in poor health. Could you please stop making trouble and stop stimulating her? She still has me in her heart. Don't hang around in front of her." After saying that, Lucas would always leave me alone and go traveling with Juliet. At the age of 20, Lucas couldn't hide all his emotions well. He was like a hedgehog, showing his soft belly to Juliet and stabbing me all over. I lowered my head and quickened my pace to leave. Juliet stopped me. Her face was full of confusion and panic. "Miss Isabella, Lucas just wants to accompany me. Could you please not quarrel with Lucas because of me? Tonight's singles party, everyone won't bring their girlfriends. Don't think too much about it. Lucas, Miss Isabella is angry. Please coax her." And Lucas smiled at Juliet indulgently and said indifferently, "Isabella doesn't dare to be angry with me. She's been quite sensible recently. Besides, if I coax her, you'll be unhappy, and I can't bear to see you unhappy." I froze on the spot. Lucas's words were like a knife, stabbing hard into my heart. Seeing that I didn't leave, Lucas's eyes were full of annoyance. He said to me angrily, "Why are you still standing here? It's annoying to see you. By the way, Juliet is coming to work in the company. I'll drive her to and from work from now on. Don't show up in front of us when you have nothing to do, and don't make her unhappy." The next day, with my eyes swollen from crying, I handed in the plan that I had stayed up all night to prepare. Also included was my resignation application. After walking out of the director's office, I went back to my workstation to pack up my things. There was a commotion at the door, and I looked up. It was Lucas and Juliet. The two of them were wearing clothes in the same color scheme and walked in chatting and laughing. Lucas's hand was carefully protecting Juliet's waist. His eyes were full of love. At first glance, one would think they were a couple. The colleagues beside them were whispering, and there was no doubt that they were all complimenting them on how well matched they were. Their veiled gazes fell on me. They kept comparing me with Juliet and finally came to the conclusion that Juliet was prettier than me. Hearing the colleagues' words, I felt a bit sad in my heart, but more of it was a sense of relief. Seeing how close Lucas and Juliet were, more colleagues were busy with their work, but their eyes kept lingering among the three of us. Everyone in the company knew that Lucas and I were fiancé and fiancée and that I loved Lucas deeply. But now Lucas was openly protecting Juliet, and the way they looked at me was pitying and knowing. It was as if they could see me crying and begging Lucas not to leave me. The colleague who was close to me also looked at me worriedly. But I silently packed up my things. Lucas frowned and looked at me unhappily. "Who are you putting on that gloomy face for? What are you doing?" I smiled calmly and pointed at my things. "I've resigned and am packing up my things. Don't worry. I won't be an eyesore to you, nor will I make Juliet unhappy." At this time, Juliet swayed her slender waist and walked gracefully towards me. She put a mango cake in front of me. Smiling gently, she said, "Miss Isabella, this is the cake that Lucas made for me. I think you haven't tasted his cooking skills. His skills are really great. You must have a taste. I hope you won't be angry with Lucas. A good job is hard to come by. Although Miss Isabella comes from a wealthy family, you can't waste such an opportunity like this." I didn't take the cake from Juliet's hand. The smile on Juliet's face became a bit stiff and she looked at Lucas with a bit of grievance. Lucas's face looked even uglier and he said coldly, "Since Juliet is kind enough to share it with you, just take it. How can you be so rude?" "Share?" I smiled slowly and looked up at Lucas. Lucas, I'm allergic to mangoes. Lucas was stunned. I didn't know. Seeing that Lucas didn't say anything, Juliet quickly said, I heard Lucas say that you often buy mangoes and take them home. You? Oh, Miss Isabella, if you dislike me, you can just say so directly. There's no need to lie. I smiled again. I often bought mangoes and took them home because Lucas liked them, and I never touched them. Looking at Lucas's cold appearance, I couldn't help feeling a sense of grievance in my heart. We grew up together, but he couldn't tell that I was allergic to mangoes. Before I could say anything, Lucas got even angrier. He threw the fresh mango pieces in Juliet's hand at my face. Seeing that I was unharmed, his eyes were cold and fierce. Isabella, how have you become such a liar? I hung my head. My face was burning with pain, and red dots appeared on my face one by one. The colleague beside me saw these dense red dots and screamed. I just felt short of breath and then lost consciousness. I have a very serious mango allergy. I can hardly bear the smell of mangoes, let alone having fresh mangoes thrown directly at my face. When I woke up, I was already lying on the hospital bed. Lucas stood in front of me with a bit of guilt in his eyes. His expression was complicated. I didn't know. Sorry. I didn't say anything. Lucas stared at me fixedly. He seemed to realize that something was wrong with me too. During this period of time, I had been too cold towards him, and I had been avoiding him. A hint of panic flashed in Lucas's eyes. He poured me a glass of water. Isabella, why do I feel that you've changed? I looked up at him and just felt that this face that I had loved for 2 lifetimes now seemed a bit unrecognizable. I said faintly, it's you who has changed. I've never changed. Lucas sighed helplessly. His tone softened. Yesterday I just told you not to bother Juliet when you had nothing to do. I didn't mean to ask you to resign. Juliet has just started working in the company. She only knows me, so I also need to take care of her. By the way, how's the plan you've been working on recently? Why don't you give it to Juliet? After all, she needs it more than you do. Hearing Lucas's words, I pulled a weak smile at the corner of my mouth. Isn't it enough that Juliet has snatched my fiancé? Does she also want to snatch my plan? Lucas's face darkened. He looked at me disappointedly. Juliet and I are just friends now. Could you please stop being so relentless? Isabella, do you know that you're really possessive? I now feel that living in the same city or even the same country with you is really suffocating. I looked up at him. Then I put the immigration application form on my phone in front of him, saying word by word, don't worry. I'm planning to immigrate to the United States and will never appear by your side again. Lucas didn't say anything. He just looked at me with an inscrutable expression. I originally thought that Lucas would be happy if I left so sensibly, but I didn't see a single smile on his face. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. It turned out that he didn't even want to smile. A sense of inexplicable tiredness welled up from the bottom of my heart. I was just about to ask Lucas to leave. Suddenly, Lucas's cell phone rang. He looked at the phone and his face suddenly turned a bit ugly. After a long while, he said to me, let's forget about our engagement banquet for now. Juliet has been in very poor health recently and she can't do without me. I don't want to make her unhappy. I nodded. It didn't matter anymore. Anyway, there wouldn't be an engagement. I was afraid of repeating the same mistakes and didn't want to die at Lucas's hands again. 1 month before leaving for the United States, when I was packing my luggage, I found a diary. It recorded all my feelings about loving Lucas. Just as I was about to throw the diary into the trash can, my cell phone suddenly rang. It was Lucas's call. On the other end of the phone, Lucas's voice was strange and distant. He said, your birthday is in a few days. I remember you've always been talking about wanting to go to City A to watch the sunrise. Let me accompany you to City A to watch the sunrise. Hearing Lucas's words, my heart still softened involuntarily. Over the years, Lucas had been my family and my lover. Even when he hated me deeply, he had once stayed by my side day and night when I was seriously ill. I thought, well, then let's say goodbye properly. On the morning of my birthday, I arrived early at the famous viewing platform in City A, waiting for Lucas. But I didn't wait for Lucas or the sunrise. Instead, an earthquake came. In the face of natural disasters, humans are extremely fragile and tiny. I didn't have time to think much. Remembering the knowledge in the earthquake prevention manual, I found a relatively safe place. After a violent shaking, I passed out. When I woke up, I found that I had been buried under a pile of rubble. Fortunately, there were two huge pieces of wood above me, giving me a narrow shelter. In the darkness, I thought a lot. Most of my thoughts were about my parents. Fortunately, they didn't come to City A with me. But they must be very worried about me now. It's all my fault. In the darkness, all time seemed to stand still. Just when I thought I was going to die under the ruins like this, a pair of scarred hands carefully pulled me out. In my blurred vision, I only saw a familiar face. I had many dreams. I dreamed of my past life when I was killed by Lucas and the heartbroken looks of my parents. I dreamed that they walked forward without looking back, and no matter how I called them, they wouldn't turn around. When I woke up from the dream, the smell of disinfectant filled my nose. That familiar face, looking haggard, was by my side. When he saw that I woke up, his eyes were full of surprise. Not knowing what came to his mind, he pursed his lips and said, "I just happened to pass by and saved you on a whim." I looked at his two hands wrapped up tightly and smiled, "Thank you for your whim. Long time no see, Edward." Edward was the younger son of my father's friend. Since childhood, he had always liked to tease me, and because of this, he had fought with Lucas many times. Lucas didn't like him, so I seldom gave him a good look. Later, his father went abroad to develop business, and he immigrated with him. But unexpectedly, he showed up in City A and saved me. Although he had a bad expression on his face, the worry in his eyes still gave him away. After being rescued, Edward tried various ways to help me build up my health. Under his meticulous care, I recovered quickly. The relationship between us also eased a little and we could even crack a few jokes. I was drinking the steaming bone soup and asked Edward, "Why did you suddenly come back to China and also come to City A?" Edward looked at me with deep eyes, was silent for a while and said, "Someone once said that when she was 20 years old, she must come to the viewing platform in City A to watch the sunrise." My hand trembled. Edward continued, "Isabella, I came here for you. Anyway, you don't have anyone now. Why don't you just marry me? I'm more handsome, rich and presentable." I was silent, not knowing what to say. Edward's bright eyes dimmed a little and he smiled bitterly. At this time, my cell phone rang, breaking the silence between us. It was Lucas's call. I quickly answered the phone. "Are you okay?" During this period of time, I had always wanted to ask Edward about Lucas's situation, but as soon as I mentioned Lucas, he would say with a dark face that he wouldn't die. It made me feel very uneasy. This time, seeing Lucas's call, I breathed a sigh of relief. Lucas's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Sorry, Juliet has been in a bad mood recently. I went out to play with her and forgot to bring my phone." Hearing Lucas's words, my heart suddenly ached. Lucas continued, "Those things of yours and the things you gave me, come and get them when you have time. Uncle and Aunt won't let me enter the old house of the Isabella family." I still couldn't help asking him, "Lucas, I'm in City A and just experienced an earthquake." Lucas said, "So what? Aren't you still alive?" Before I could say anything, Lucas's impatient voice rang out again, "Juliet has depression. She knew that we were engaged and has been very uneasy. I want to give her more sense of security, so could you please find a boyfriend to let her know that I only belong to her. Isabella, Juliet is different from you. She only has me. When she gets better, everything will be back on track. Isabella, can you understand me?" I wanted to laugh. But I couldn't laugh at all. Juliet's coquettish voice came from the phone, and soon the phone was hung up amid an ambiguous laugh. Suddenly, a tissue appeared in front of me. Only then did I realize that I was already in tears. I looked up and looked at Edward in front of me helplessly. Edward had deep eyes, and his eyes looking at me were full of pity. He didn't say anything but silently wiped away the tears on my face. I grasped his hand tightly. Are you willing to marry me? Edward was silent for a few moments and then withdrew his hand. I felt gloomy in my heart. Well, after all, who would be willing to be a substitute? I forced out an ugly smile and said, I was being too presumptuous. Edward stretched out his hand and hugged me tightly, saying in a low voice, it should be me proposing to you, not you to me. Edward moved quickly. After returning to City S, we got our marriage certificate. I didn't want to hold a grand wedding, so under the witness of our two families, we invited a few friends. Then we got on the plane to France. While Edward and I were watching the lavender in France, Lucas held one singles party after another for Juliet. When I moved into Edward's house in the United States, Lucas moved Juliet's luggage to his home and the two of them started living together. My friends were a bit worried and asked me about my feelings in a roundabout way. But there were no ripples in my heart. Because I was very busy. In the United States, I picked up my former job, the teaching job that Lucas had once scorned. I became a music teacher in a prestigious school. I originally thought that I would never have anything to do with Lucas again in this lifetime. After all, his heart was completely devoted to Juliet. Without me around, he could be nice to Juliet without any scruples. But when I saw Lucas, looking travel-worn, appear in front of me, I was still very surprised. Lucas was wearing a suit that didn't fit him very well, and his tie was askew. He stood in front of me with a sad look in his eyes. Isabella, where have you been in the past 3 years? I couldn't find you no matter how hard I tried. Mom and Dad didn't want to tell me where you were. Your friends cursed me every time they saw me. I really missed you. Hearing Lucas's words, I didn't feel anything inside. I even felt a bit disgusted. Lucas wanted to step forward and hold my hand. I took a step back. Seeing my subconscious action, Lucas looked a bit hurt. Once upon a time, when I saw Lucas looking hurt, I would be extremely worried. Now I just felt annoyed. I said calmly, why aren't you staying with Juliet? She couldn't do without you. Hearing Juliet's name, a fierce look flashed in Lucas's eyes. He said, Isabella, Juliet lied to me. She left me back then because she thought I was poor and useless and ran away with a rich second generation. The rich second generation didn't treat her well. She knew that Mom and Dad wanted to hand the Isabella family business over to me, so she came back eagerly, lying to me that she had depression. I impatiently interrupted him, your parents died long ago. They aren't your parents. Don't call them that randomly. Lucas looked at me sadly. Isabella, you've changed. Are you still angry with me because of Juliet? Please don't be angry anymore. I only love you in this lifetime. Before I could say anything, Edward's voice came from beside me. Edward was holding a child and quickly walked to my side. He looked at Lucas with an ugly expression on his face. Isabella and I are already married. Don't try to destroy my family. Hearing Edward's words, Lucas turned pale and trembled all over. Lucas's eyes were red. Isabella, you must be deliberately lying to me, right? You're lying to me. I ignored him and turned around to leave with Edward. Suddenly, there was a thud from behind. Lucas knelt on the ground, crying his heart out. Isabella, as long as you leave them, I'll be with you properly. Aren't you the one who loved me the most? How could you have changed? I stopped in my tracks. I walked up to Lucas and looked at the tears in the corners of his eyes. I spoke calmly, as if I were talking to a stranger. Lucas, you've also come back, right? Then you should know why I've changed. In my past life, in the 10th year after I married Lucas, my family went bankrupt. After learning this news, I was very emotionally unstable. I accidentally fell at home, which caused the baby in my womb to be born prematurely. Lucas rushed back from France overnight and waited at the door of the delivery room. After a day and a night of efforts, I gave birth to a girl. But before I could even take a look at the baby, I passed out. I was woken up by a bucket of cold water. When I woke up, I found that I was tied up in a basement, and Lucas was holding a photo, looking at it tenderly and nostalgically, gently stroking the photo album with both hands as if he were touching the face of the person he loved most. Lucas? Hearing my voice, he carefully put the photo frame aside. Then he looked at me coldly. "Isabella, you're awake." The light in the basement was dim, and there was no longer the former tenderness on Lucas's face. The way he looked at me was cold and disgusted, as if he were looking at an enemy. I didn't know what had happened. After all, Lucas and I had grown up together since childhood, and he had been very nice to me. After marriage, he was even nicer to me. He put me first in everything and didn't let me do any housework at home. He always took care of everything by himself. No matter how busy he was at work, he would come home on time to have dinner with me every day. Even the secretary around him was male. He said he didn't want to cause unnecessary misunderstandings and troubles. My friends all envied me for meeting such an extremely good man. I also felt very lucky that I could meet Lucas in my life. But in this dim basement, Lucas had become a different person. He picked up a knife and let the blade move along my exposed skin. The cold touch made goosebumps rise all over my body. Lucas's handsome features were distorted, and he said through gritted teeth, "Isabella, after 10 years, I can finally avenge Juliet." Juliet? Hearing this name, I was stunned for a moment. Then I saw the person in the photo frame, and it felt like my blood had frozen. It was Lucas's first love, Juliet. 10 years ago, on the day we got married, Juliet slit her wrists and committed suicide in the hotel. After learning that Juliet had slit her wrists and committed suicide, Lucas didn't change his expression and even comforted me, who was a bit uneasy. Although Juliet was my first love, since she started dating a new boyfriend, I've only regarded her as a friend. She's too headstrong. Don't take it to heart. With Lucas's comfort, I put this matter behind me. Now, looking at Lucas with hatred in his eyes, I understood everything. Lucas cut my wrist with the knife, looking crazy. I was extremely scared and pleaded with him urgently. "Lucas, killing is illegal. My parents will look for me, and there's also our child." Hearing my words, Lucas laughed crazily. "You died on the operating table because of the difficult childbirth. Besides, the Isabella family has gone bankrupt, and your parents can't even take care of themselves." He had a strange look on his face. "That child? It's the child of me and Juliet. It was just that she used your womb. What weak sperm. It was just an excuse I made for keeping myself chaste for Juliet and making you have in vitro fertilization." Lucas's words in my ears gradually became blurred, and I could hardly hear them clearly. Blood flowed out from the wound, making me feel cold all over. After I died, I still had a bit of consciousness left. I watched as my father, in a trance due to my death, drove his car and plunged into the surging river during an outing. When the police fished him out, his body was already decomposed, but his hand was still tightly clutching the photo of our family. In despair, my mother jumped from a tall building, while Lucas was holding my daughter, whom I had carried in my womb for 10 months and named her Camilla, and she lived a safe and smooth life. As my soul was dissipating, I heard a voice asking me, "Do you want to start over?" After I held my parents' warm hands and confirmed again and again, finally confirming that I was reborn, I hugged my parents, crying and laughing at the same time. My parents thought that I had been stimulated by something. Looking at my parents, I always remembered all the things in my past life. Undoubtedly, I was filled with hatred and wished I could kill Lucas with my own hands to relieve the hatred in my heart. But looking at my parents' kind smiles, I hesitated. I had obtained this hard-won opportunity and didn't want to be blinded by hatred. What's more, Lucas's mother died of illness a few years after giving birth to him. His father was my father's driver and died in a car accident when my father was out working. He sacrificed his own life to save my father's life. My father had always been thinking about this debt of gratitude and took Lucas to the Isabella family and raised him as his own son. Lucas and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts. When I was 16 years old, I was kidnapped during an outing. The kidnappers not only asked for money but also made inappropriate advances towards me. In despair, I saw Lucas's figure appear at the door of the warehouse. He firmly protected me under him. No matter how the kidnappers beat him, he gritted his teeth and persisted. His blood mixed with my tears. When the police arrived later, Lucas was already half dead. But he still didn't forget to hold me tightly in his arms. It could be said that Lucas saved my life. Those kidnappers were fierce and vicious fugitives and had never intended to let me go back alive. Thinking of these things, I sighed. Well, Lucas saved my life and I've already given it back to him. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. I didn't know when Lucas had come back, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. In my past life, I died miserably in the basement and from then on, I had nothing to do with him. The kindness of Lucas's father had already been repaid by my father's protection in 2 lifetimes. And the kindness of his saving my life had been taken back by him in the past life. Now, we were just strangers. However, Lucas didn't think so. He knelt on the ground, crying sadly. He wanted to hold my hand, but under my cold gaze, he withdrew his trembling hand. Lucas said, "Isabella, I was wrong in the past. But after you died, I suddenly realized that you were the person I loved the most, so I followed you. My feelings for Juliet were just a momentary indulgence in my youth. I just thought we were too familiar and I couldn't tell whether it was love or family affection, so I made mistakes. Isabella, please forgive me. I don't want to lose you." I took a few steps back. My voice was calm and resolute. "No. Lucas, you've already lost me. Maybe it was when you were with Juliet, maybe it was when you gave my works to Juliet for her sake, or maybe it was when you left me behind time and time again for Juliet. You've already lost me." Hearing my words, Lucas's face turned extremely ashen. He knelt there, thinking for a long time. Then he staggered to his feet. Edward vigilantly protected me behind him. Seeing this, Lucas smiled bitterly. He didn't say anything to me but just gave me a deep look and left unsteadily. I saw Lucas again because he kidnapped me. Juliet huddled beside me, looking at Lucas with a frightened look in her eyes. She bit her lip, looking pitiful, trying to make Lucas feel pity for her, just like before. But Lucas just looked at me affectionately. Juliet forced a smile at the corner of her mouth and curled it up a little. Her smile was dim. "Lucas, what are you doing? Miss Isabella is already married." Lucas shouted at her angrily, "Shut up. You shameless bitch. If it weren't for you, would I have separated from Isabella?" Hearing Lucas's words, Juliet turned pale. Lucas continued, "Hurry up and explain to Isabella. I was just worried about your illness back then. I didn't do many excessive things." She looked at me. "Lucas is right. Actually, once when Lucas was drunk, he talked about you until midnight. He loves you very much. I hope you two can make up." I interrupted her, "We won't make up. I'm already married." Juliet was stunned for a moment, and a glint of light flashed in her eyes and then disappeared. "Even if you're married, you can still get divorced. Lucas loves you so much. You can't let him down. Although I love Lucas very much, I just want to make him happy. I was forced by someone back then and don't deserve him." As she said this, her eyes were filled with tears. But Lucas wasn't moved. Instead, he looked at her coldly. I smiled and repeated, "I don't love him anymore, so I won't make up with him." Juliet's eyes were filled with tears. She said timidly, "You don't know that Lucas has been looking for you for 3 years. How can you treat him like this? Do you know how sad he will be because of you?" I turned to ask Lucas, "What right does your first love have to ask me these things?" Juliet looked at Lucas, her eyes full of deep affection. A hint of emotion flashed in Lucas's eyes. I sneered in my heart. Lucas was still influenced by Juliet's words. But seeing my calm appearance, Lucas suddenly turned cold. "Mind your own business. If it weren't for you sowing discord back then, I would have already married Isabella and we would have had children long ago." Lucas added, "Isabella, please be with me. If you don't like her, I'll make her leave this place, leave this city, or even leave this world. She'll never be an eyesore to you again." Lucas's eyes looking at me were full of longing, while his eyes looking at Juliet were full of disgust. If it were in the past, I would surely be very happy. Because it was a sign that Lucas liked me. But now I couldn't feel happy at all. Instead, I felt bored. Remembering the contemptuous looks I had received in my past life, I felt bitter in my heart. I shook my head and said, "Lucas, I won't get divorced, and I won't make up with you either. Don't hold on to your illusions. Lucas's face gradually turned cold. He grabbed Juliet's hair and banged her head on the ground in front of me. Blood stained the dust red. Isabella, what else do you want me to do? You just need to get divorced. I swear that I'll love you more than Edward. I won't leave you. I struggled and shook my head desperately. Lucas pulled me up abruptly and said through gritted teeth, "You want to leave me? You're dreaming." He lowered his head and kissed my lips. I felt sick to my stomach. I struggled hard and then leaned over, retching. Lucas was as if struck by lightning and froze. "Isabella, do you find it that disgusting to have contact with me?" I looked at his pale face resentfully, watching the pain and helplessness slowly welling up in his eyes. He was crying. He was crying again. His lips were trembling. He wanted to speak but couldn't say a word. Finally, with red eyes, he squatted aside. Suddenly, I remembered when I was 8 years old. I suddenly wanted a bottle of cola very much. At that time, Lucas ran out. As it was raining, he fell down many times. When he came to me, his face was bruised and swollen, but the cola in his arms was clean. He took off his coat and handed me the cola in his arms, grinning at me. I also remembered when I was 18 years old. Lucas blushed, held my hand, and said to me, "I like you." At that time, my heart was like a heavy bell, constantly pounding against my fragile heart. I looked into Lucas's eyes, blushed, and wanted to nod. But then I heard Lucas say excitedly, "I'll go and confess my love to Juliet later. I'm just rehearsing now." Suddenly, a part of my heart felt empty. I stood there numbly, listening to Lucas saying those sweet words. I wanted to deceive myself that it was Lucas who was confessing his love to me, but every word he said was about his love for Juliet. I couldn't ignore it. Finally, I stayed in a hotel and cried as I deleted all the records about Lucas. But the next day, I couldn't help but find those records back one by one. The past events were still vivid in my mind, but I didn't love Lucas anymore. "Lucas, you're crazy." Lucas covered his head and was silent for a long time. Then he suddenly apologized, "I'm sorry, Isabella." His voice was very gentle, just like during those 10 years when we were so close. But people's hearts are hard to fathom. He hated me. Now I resented him. I forced myself to calm down and said, "Lucas, we've already parted on good terms. I don't want to care about or dwell on the past things anymore. You saved my life and I've repaid you with mine. We don't owe each other anything. I don't love you anymore. Kidnapping and illegal imprisonment are both illegal. Why are you doing this?" Lucas looked at the sunlight outside and looked me up and down. Suddenly, he took out his mobile phone and showed me a picture of a dazzling wedding dress. It was white and holy. "Isabella, you'll surely look very beautiful in this wedding dress." But I accidentally lost it. Looking at the crazy-looking Lucas, the hairs on my body stood on end. "I don't love you anymore. I already have a husband and a child. These things have already happened and can't be changed." As soon as I finished speaking, Lucas's expression suddenly changed. He quickly stepped forward. He grabbed my neck. "Isabella, stop talking, or I won't mind if we go to hell together. Then no one else can separate us." The intense feeling of suffocation overwhelmed me. I coughed repeatedly. Lucas quickly let go of my neck and humbly apologized to me. "I'm sorry, Isabella. I didn't mean it." I looked at him sadly. Lucas realized something. He looked at his hands and then smashed his hands hard on the ground. Suddenly, a group of special police officers appeared at the stairway. The moment he saw Edward, Lucas pulled me up from the ground and put a knife across my neck. Edward was terrified. "Don't be impulsive." Lucas looked at Edward sinisterly. "Do you want to save Isabella? Only one of Isabella and you can live. Either you die with me or I'll take Isabella to die." I shook my head. I felt a sharp pain in my neck, which made Edward's heart ache. He shouted loudly, "Let Isabella go. I'll die with you." Lucas watched coldly as Edward walked over. He kissed me on the face and then pushed me towards Edward. With tears in my eyes, I hugged Edward tightly. When Edward and I were about to leave, the special police officers were ready to take Lucas away. Suddenly, I heard Lucas shout loudly, "Edward, cover her eyes." The next second, my world suddenly plunged into darkness. Then came Juliet's screams, and finally 2 dull thuds. Edward hugged me tightly, his voice trembling, "Don't look, don't turn back. I just walked away from this strange place step by step." When I saw the light again, Edward hugged me tightly. Together with me, he walked away from this painful place without looking back. My elder sister has always been indecisive when it comes to handling matters and always relies on family members. Her boyfriend with whom she had been dating for half a year proposed to her, and she asked us what to do. My mother said, "When getting married, you need to consider the man's family situation. Don't marry into a family with a bad atmosphere." For this reason, my sister specifically spent time getting along with her boyfriend's parents and was treated like a princess by them. My father said, "Apart from character, health is crucial. The pre-marriage checkup cannot be skipped." So, my sister specially dragged her boyfriend to have a pre-marriage checkup and the results showed that they were both healthy. After thinking it over, I took the opportunity to mention that it was also important to check each other's credit reports before marriage. Unexpectedly, the man's entire family got angry and complained that our family was making too many rules. My sister's marriage plans were directly called off, but years later, when my sister saw the man again, she envied his wife who was dressed in gold and silver. She even pointed at my nose and shouted, "If it weren't for your meddling back then, I would be Daniel's wife now, and our whole family could have lived a good life." In a fit of madness, my sister pushed me downstairs and I died. When my parents learned about everything, they were so biased that they helped my sister dispose of the body. After being reborn, I went back to the day when my sister's boyfriend came to our home to propose marriage. This time, if they don't get firmly tied together, I'll be the first to oppose. When my sister learned that Daniel's family was about to arrive, she looked very nervous. Quickly think, is there anything else we should ask for? This is a matter of my lifelong happiness. My sister is always indecisive in the face of things. In the past, she relied on family members even for trivial matters, and now, for such a major event as marriage, she naturally depends on us. My parents racked their brains and could only come up with the idea of asking for more betrothal gifts later. My sister criticized them for being vulgar and then looked at me expectantly. I pretended not to notice. In my previous life, I was thinking of her wholeheartedly, and that's why I suggested checking each other's credit reports before marriage. I didn't want her to get married only to fall into a post-marriage fraud. But Daniel's family was extremely sensitive to this and angrily accused me of insulting their family. My parents became suspicious, and the relationship between my sister and Daniel ended there. In the end, when my sister saw that Daniel's newly married wife lived a more prosperous life than her with luxurious food, clothing, and daily expenses, she blamed me for the misfortune of her marriage and cruelly pushed me downstairs to my death. I had thought that when my parents came home, they would seek justice for me. But to my surprise, their first reaction upon seeing my body was not sadness but regret. They regretted that the pig they had raised for so many years had died without fetching a good price. In order not to implicate their only remaining daughter, they helped my sister dispose of the body. Afterwards, they even lied to the outside world, saying that I was lazy and had run away with a man I met online. They might as well have pretended they didn't have a daughter like me. People outside just laughed and scolded a bit, but who would really care about my life or death? Now that I have a chance to live again, I don't care what secrets Daniel's family is hiding. As long as my sister and Daniel's family are firmly tied together, that's fine. Seeing this, I taunted my sister, "Your future in-laws treat you so well. If you're not satisfied, be careful they don't want you. Don't secretly cry then." My sister thought about it and felt it made sense, so she stopped trying to find ways to make things difficult. The whole process of the marriage proposal went very smoothly. When our family asked for 88,000 yuan as betrothal gifts, Daniel's father took the initiative to say he would increase it to 100,000 yuan for a perfect and auspicious start. After this move, my parents were grinning from ear to ear originally, they planned to keep this betrothal gift money for themselves to get some return for their investment over the past 20-odd years. But I didn't want them to be so happy. After the amount of the betrothal gift was settled, I pretended not to know and asked, "My sister will take this 100,000 yuan with her when she gets married, right?" The smiles on my parents' faces froze. Daniel's parents looked at each other and then said with a big smile, "It's up to you whether to take it or not. But the relatives on our side will be eager to see the dowry from the bride's family. The higher it is, the more highly they'll regard the bride." Hearing this, my sister immediately replied, "I'll definitely take this 100,000 yuan. My parents will also give me some more money to show off, right?" My parents secretly glared at me and could only force a smile and say they would give my sister 50,000 yuan. To feel at ease, my parents then proposed to go and take a look at the man's home before my sister got married. This request was reasonable, and Daniel didn't refuse, but the next day, Daniel said he couldn't buy tickets. My sister didn't believe it. What age is this now? How could it be that neither high-speed rail tickets nor plane tickets are available? Do you not want my parents to go? As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. Daniel was flustered and explained, "It's really not that. The Dragon Boat Festival is coming soon, and the tickets are really in short supply." While they were arguing, I secretly opened Trip to check the tickets. Although the tickets were in short supply, there were still tickets available for many G-series high-speed trains, enough for all of us to travel together. It seems that either Daniel didn't want to buy tickets or couldn't buy them. But whether it's the former or the latter, it proves that there must be something wrong in Daniel's family, and it's something serious. But as long as it makes my sister's life difficult, it's a happy thing for me. Naturally, I had to help Daniel. "Oh, my dear sister. Every time you want to go somewhere, it's me who takes the trouble to buy tickets for you. You don't understand the hardship of grabbing tickets during holidays. Don't make things difficult for your future husband. Every time our family travels, I'm the one who buys the tickets, and they don't know how to do it at all." Naturally, they wouldn't doubt what I said. Seeing this, my sister pouted unhappily. "Then what should we do if we can't buy tickets? My parents still want to go and take pictures to show our relatives. They've already promised." My parents, sitting on the sofa, looked increasingly gloomy when they heard they couldn't go. Daniel's father immediately stood up. "It's easy to go there. Daniel and I will drive you there. It takes 7 or 8 hours to drive from Daniel's home to ours." Hearing this, my father couldn't wait to show off to others, sighing that my sister had found a good in-laws family and that her future in-laws attached great importance to her. But when we arrived at Daniel's hometown, my parents were shocked silly when they saw the dilapidated houses everywhere. This house can still be lived in?" My father looked around, so shocked by the dilapidated scene that he stuttered. Daniel was not embarrassed at all, but rather proud. "Uncle, our place is about to be demolished. Although it looks shabby now, we'll get a lot of money when the demolition compensation arrives." When they heard it was a house to be demolished, the expressions on our family members' faces improved a bit. Daniel's mother took my sister's hand and said, "We're looking forward to Emma getting married and moving her hukou to our family. Then, when the demolition compensation is distributed according to the number of people, we can get more." As soon as I heard this, I felt something fishy. The current demolition policy is different from before. Daniel's family has an old house of 90 square meters. How could it be distributed according to the number of people? My parents have never been involved in demolition matters in their lives, so naturally they don't know about these things. The two of them cheerfully started urging my sister to get married to Daniel as soon as possible, looking forward to getting more money later. My sister usually listens to our family. After returning, she immediately got a marriage certificate with Daniel. Daniel promised solemnly that once the demolition money arrived, he would buy a big house for my sister. However, it didn't take long for Daniel's family to go back on their word. The cause was that not long after my sister got the marriage certificate, she started having symptoms of vomiting. When she went to the hospital for a checkup, she found out she was pregnant. Daniel's family was overjoyed. Then they suggested, Emma has really suffered a lot during this pregnancy, and she's not in a good state. Why don't we just wait until the baby is born to hold the wedding? My parents naturally opposed this as soon as they heard it. The Daniels family just saw that you're pregnant and they're sure you have to marry into their family, so they want to renege on their promise. How despicable and shameless. They encouraged my sister to have an abortion and not let Daniel's family get away with it. Of course, I didn't agree. It was so hard to matchmake my sister and get her married into Daniel's family, which she had dreamed of. All the hardships hadn't even started yet, how could she back out now? I quickly called Daniel and told him that my parents had taken my sister to the hospital. Daniel's family rushed over immediately and took my sister's hand to start explaining. Mom and Dad, you've got it wrong. We didn't want to hold the wedding because Emma said she wanted to be the most beautiful bride, not because we wanted to play tricks. We've even brought the 100,000 yuan betrothal gift. Daniel transferred 100,000 yuan to my sister's account in front of my parents. I quickly coaxed, Sis, I think what brother-in-law said makes sense. If you get married in a few months, not only can't you wear the mermaid wedding dress you've been longing for, but you can't even put on a beautiful makeup. What a pity. My sister was tempted by what I said and immediately decided to postpone the wedding. She decided that after giving birth to the baby, she must be a beautiful bride and amaze everyone. My parents couldn't persuade her, so they had to follow her wishes. After getting married, my sister moved into the rental house of Daniel's family and quit her job. She enjoyed the meticulous care from her in-laws with peace of mind, and would share things in our family group from time to time. Oh, my husband handed over all his salary this month. He only left 200 yuan for his pocket money. She then posted a screenshot of a 20,000 yuan transfer in the group, and all the relatives quickly started to praise. My goodness, Daniel has such a high salary? Is his company still hiring? Introduce it to your cousin. With such a high salary, he doesn't even save any private money. Such a good husband is hard to find even with a lantern. Emma, does Daniel have any single friends or relatives? You can try to matchmake them with your cousin. My sister was so happy that she kept agreeing to everything in the group, not knowing that my brother-in-law's job was not simple at all. On Friday after work, our manager left her wallet in the company when she got off work and asked me to send it to the mahjong parlor for her. As soon as I got there, I caught sight of Daniel. He was smoking a cigarette and hanging around in the mahjong parlor, looking very ruffian. He completely lost the gentle and refined appearance he showed in front of us. When the manager saw me staring at him, she kindly advised, "This guy is a gambler. No matter who you like, don't like him." I had never shown the photos of my sister and Daniel, so the manager naturally didn't know that Daniel was my brother-in-law. From the manager's introduction, I learned that Daniel had been hanging around in the mahjong parlor all year round and was a well-known gambler. The year before last, he owed a huge debt and didn't come to play cards for quite a while. Recently, it seemed that he had managed to get some loans to ease the situation and started gambling again. But his luck was extremely bad, winning less and losing more. The more I listened, the more puzzled I became. If he had to borrow money to play cards, where did he get the money to transfer to my sister? But I kept this matter a secret and didn't tell my sister and the others. This marriage was what she had been longing for in her previous life. Even if it was a deep pit, she had to jump in for me. Let her jump until she died. A few days later, my parents took a fancy to a newly launched real estate project and wanted my sister to pay the down payment. This house has a good location, complete surrounding facilities, and the school nearby is a well-known 9-year consistent school. Daniel's family has already prepaid part of the demolition money. You should buy the house quickly. My parents praised the house to the skies, fearing that my sister would be too late and miss out. Unexpectedly, my sister said she had no money. How could you have no money? You should have at least 400,000 yuan in hand. Last week, my mother-in-law said the store needed money for working capital, so she borrowed all the money I had. My father slapped his thigh in a hurry. Such a big thing, why didn't you ask us? How could you lend out your own money? What if your mother-in-law and father-in-law don't pay it back? My sister smiled sheepishly. I got married, so I'm used to discussing things with my husband. And Daniel said that he would double return the money I lent to his parents in the future. My mother-in-law also said she would pay me interest. My mother was so angry that she scolded my sister for being stupid. Of course they would say nice things. If they don't pay back, you'll cry in vain. My mother forced her to go and get the money back immediately. I quickly stepped forward to be a peacemaker. Oh, Mom, the money has already been lent out. If you ask for it back now, what will brother-in-law's family think of sister? After a while, you can think of an excuse with sister and then ask for the money. It's not too late. My sister immediately coquettishly said, little sister's idea is the best. If I ask for the money back now, where will I put my face? My sister naively thought that the money would come back to her hands in the future. But when she was in the late stage of pregnancy, she received several strange phone calls. As soon as the other side opened their mouths, they threatened her to pay back the money, otherwise she would be in big trouble. My sister told us about this, scared and not knowing what to do. I comforted her that it must be a fraud call and she should just block it. She believed me. But not long after, something happened to my sister. My parents called me crying, saying that my sister was in the hospital for emergency treatment and the situation was very dangerous. I exclaimed and quickly asked what had happened. But my parents urged me to come to the hospital quickly, saying that I would know when I got there. When I arrived, I saw a group of big, burly strangers with fleshy faces surrounding the delivery room door. My parents were huddled in the corner, looking at these people with hatred and fear. I asked and found out that my sister had been chased for debts by these people today, which led to her accidentally falling and having a premature birth. And it was a difficult labor. As I listened, I looked around in surprise and found that none of Daniel's family members had come. Mom and Dad, where are my brother-in-law and his family? Don't mention those 3 people. I called them until my phone was almost dead. Their phones were either turned off or busy and couldn't be reached. My father poured out his grievances to me non-stop. At this time, the door of the delivery room opened, and a nurse walked out anxiously. Family members of Emma, the parturient's situation is not good now. You need to be prepared mentally. My mother was so scared that she grabbed the nurse's sleeve. Doctor, my daughter is still young. You must save her. If the baby really can't be saved, it doesn't matter. The important thing is to save the mother. Just as Daniel's parents ran over, sweating profusely, they heard this sentence about saving the mother. No. We must save our grandson. The 2 pairs of parents started arguing loudly in front of the delivery room. The nurse couldn't persuade them, so she had to close the door again. Daniel's mother had a face full of hatred. I'm telling you, if anything happens to my grandson, you'd better watch out or I'll tear you apart. My father was so angry that he rolled up his sleeves. Damn it. I haven't even settled the score with you yet. What's going on with these debt collectors? If it weren't for them coming to the door, my daughter would be safely waiting for the baby at home. Seeing the fierce-looking group of people at the door, Daniel's father's eyes became unnatural. At this, the leader at the door walked over. He calmly took out the IOU and transfer records from his pocket and showed them to my parents. Without exception, the borrower was Daniel and the debt was as high as over $1 million. Daniel's parents were well aware of this. So what if he's in debt? Which man these days doesn't have a load of debt when starting a family? Your Emma was just taught by you to be too weak. She can't even handle a little thing. She really doesn't seem like one of our Daniel's family. The debt collector also said, we're asking for the money in a civilized way. We didn't smash anything or hit anyone. It was your daughter who fell while going to the toilet and then this happened. Even if the police come, we're not afraid. My father was so angry that his chest hurt. The one who borrowed the money is Daniel. You should go after him. Why come after my daughter? If you hadn't come to the door, she definitely wouldn't have had an accident. Daniel and your daughter are husband and wife, so the debt should be shared. Since Daniel can't be found and his parents have no money, of course I'll come to your daughter. The debt collector's reasoning was clear. Daniel's parents sneered aside. Our Daniel borrowed money for family expenses. How can Emma just enjoy and not share the burden of paying back the money? If you two elders feel sorry for her, you should help the kids out. Hearing such shameless words, my father was so angry that he called the police. But after the police learned the ins and outs, they said it was a private lending dispute. As long as the way the other party collected the debt was neither illegal nor violent, the police couldn't interfere. My father's eyes were blood red. Now my daughter is still inside being rescued. How can this not be considered violent? The police shook their heads helplessly after watching the video recorded by the debt collector on the spot. The other party has been recording the video since entering the door. There was no physical contact and no verbal threats during the whole process. It's really impossible to convict them. Just then, the nurse appeared again, bringing good news. The baby had been safely delivered. But there was also bad news. My sister had lost too much blood and needed to have her uterus removed to save her life. My mother covered her face and cried, pleading with the doctor to try harder. She's only 24 years old. If she loses her uterus, she won't be a normal woman anymore. How can she live? Daniel's mother teased the baby in the nurse's arms and said disdainfully, if you don't remove it, then she can just wait to die. I really don't know what all this fuss is about. My mother gritted her teeth. Your words are too heartless. If it weren't for giving birth to a child for your Daniel's family, would my Emma be suffering like this? Do you have any humanity left? Daniel's mother didn't hide her disgust. Bah! It's her own bad luck. Who can she blame? She even made my grandson suffer in her belly and almost lost his life. My father stepped forward to teach her a lesson. I quickly said, Mom and Dad, at this life and death moment, don't argue. Otherwise, my sister might lose her life. My parents had no choice but to sign the consent form with a heavy heart. When my sister, who had had her uterus removed, was wheeled out of the operating room, Daniel finally showed up. Naturally, the first thing my parents did was to settle the score with him and ask him why he had so much debt outside. Daniel lay comfortably on the empty bed next door and yawned. I borrowed money because I didn't have enough to spend. Isn't this a stupid question? I stayed up all night last night. If there's nothing else, you can go home. I want to sleep some more. My father, who is a heavy smoker, of course smelled the pungent cigarette smell on Daniel. You didn't sleep all night and didn't answer your phone. Your wife almost died in the operating room while giving birth to your child. What on earth did you do? And what else are you hiding from us? My father wasn't stupid. Seeing Daniel's appearance, he became suspicious. Since the debt issue had come to light, Daniel no longer hid it. Emma didn't die, did she? What are you in such a hurry for? I didn't win any money last night and I'm already in a bad mood. You'd better not nag in front of me. Otherwise, if I get angry, your daughter will be in trouble. These inhumane words would make any passerby angry. My father raised his hand to teach him a lesson for my sister. But he was getting old after all and couldn't really beat Daniel. He was tripped to the ground with one kick and couldn't get up for a long time. My mother cried and scolded him, calling him a heartless man, and said that she would make them divorce when my sister woke up. But Daniel wasn't afraid at all. Divorce then? Who's afraid of who? Most of the money I borrowed was used to subsidize the family. Even if we divorce, Emma can't get out of it. Besides, she's a woman who has had her uterus removed. I'd like to see who would want her. She'll end up alone for the rest of her life. My mother didn't believe him and specifically consulted a lawyer. As a result, the lawyer said that my sister had really run into a tough opponent this time. The lawyer said that Daniel's family had clearly set up a trap in advance. Every sum of money Daniel borrowed, he transferred a large part to my sister. In this way, the court would determine that the borrowed money was used for family expenses and would be counted as joint marital debt, unless my sister could provide detailed records of family expenses to prove that the money was not used for this purpose. But my sister has always had no experience in managing daily life. She just gave money according to her mood. After marrying into Daniel's family, she took out cash and gave it to Daniel's mother for daily expenses. She didn't have the habit of keeping accounts at all, so naturally she couldn't produce evidence. And the 400,000 yuan borrowed by Daniel's parents without an IOU would be very difficult to get back. I asked a friend to check the credit records of Daniel's whole family and found out that the three of them had long been heavily in debt and were on the credit blacklist. No wonder Daniel didn't buy tickets when there were tickets available. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he couldn't. As for the expensive-looking house to be demolished, it was just a show for us. It was all to make our family fall into the trap and facilitate Daniel's marriage to my sister. I tried to hold back my laughter and shared this news with my parents. They slapped themselves in chagrin, regretting that they had urged my sister to get married because they were greedy for the demolition money. My sister, lying on the hospital bed, vented her anger at my parents angrily. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't been urging me every day, I wouldn't have been deceived by Daniel. I lost my uterus and am now in debt." My parents felt guilty and naturally let my sister vent. But it wasn't enough for my sister to just scold my parents. She looked at me resentfully. "Olivia, what's the use of you going to college? You don't even know about checking credit records before marriage. Mom and Dad spent a lot of money on you. You should repay them. You pay back the hundreds of thousands of yuan I owe." Ha, what a calculating plan. She couldn't recognize people clearly, was deceived by a man, but pushed all the blame onto her family. I wasn't going to indulge her. "Sis, you really need to relearn math. Mom and Dad only paid my tuition in primary school. How much could primary school tuition cost? Moreover, I had good grades in junior high and high school, so I went to school for free. I earned my college tuition and living expenses through part-time jobs. How could you even mention hundreds of thousands of yuan so casually?" After I retorted angrily, my sister started coughing on the bed due to anger. This cough tugged at her newly stitched wound, making her face look even uglier. My mother, who has always been fond of my sister, immediately rebuked me. "Olivia, can't you shut up? Don't you see your sister is upset? Letting her scold you a few words won't kill you." My father didn't even have basic principles. "You two are real sisters. Of course you should find a way to deal with your sister's debt. Otherwise, what's the point of us raising you?" I directly sneered. "You raised me until I was 18. When you get old, I'll naturally take care of you in your old age. But I've never heard of having to take care of my sister. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at if this gets out?" If they wanted me to pay off the debt, I wasn't afraid at all. I was still a postgraduate student at this time and had no money at all. Since my parents had such heartless thoughts, I quickly packed my luggage and moved back to the school dormitory as soon as I got home. As for my parents, since they doted on my sister so much, they could try their best to pay off her debt by selling everything they had. I wanted to see how far they could go for my sister. After my parents brought my sister home from the hospital, they found that I had left. For this, they sent me 20 60-second voice messages filled with all kinds of abusive words about organs. I listened to them all quietly and decided that I wouldn't show mercy to these two old people in the future. I resolutely blocked my parents. But my female cousins, both paternal and maternal, would share all kinds of gossip about them with me in a timely manner. Although my sister argued with Daniel's family and told the debt collectors that she had no money and they should go to Daniel if they wanted money, the debt collectors knew Daniel's rascality well and specifically targeted my sister. They came to the door every day, banging on the door and demanding money. This made the neighbors around come to my parents to complain every day. My mother had just humbly apologized to the neighbors when the landlord made things difficult for them. The reason was that the debt collectors had written bad words on the door and wall of our house with paint, and every day a group of people surrounded the door like gangsters. This seriously affected the appearance of the landlord's house and also caused trouble for the rental of his other houses. The landlord directly ordered my parents to move out. My mother pitifully begged the landlord to be more lenient for a few days, at least until my sister finished the confinement period. The landlord knew that my sister owed a lot of money to others and didn't show her any kindness. He threatened that if they didn't move out within 2 days, he would find someone to throw all their things out. At this time, I was extremely glad that I had taken all my valuable things with me. Otherwise, when my mother and the others moved, they definitely wouldn't take my things. My sister had the nerve to come to me and ask me to borrow money from my friends so that they could rent a house. Suddenly, I had an idea and incited her. My classmates are all poor. It's definitely impossible to borrow money. But the old house is empty and no one is living in it. The environment there is good, and it's just suitable for you to do the confinement. My mother quickly stopped me. No way. If your aunt knew about this, she'd skin us alive. My parents thought they wouldn't go back to the village after moving to the city, so they had sold their part of the old house to my uncle's family. If they wanted to live there now, my aunt would definitely not agree. When my uncle's family renovated the old house, they immediately threatened in the group. If I find any irrelevant people living in the old house, don't blame me for being ruthless and embarrassing you in front of the villagers. My aunt was well known for her shrewishness in the village. Back then, when my uncle had an affair outside, she stripped him and his mistress naked and forced them to parade around the village. Since then, my uncle became impotent. My mother was still terrified of my aunt's threat and didn't dare to act rashly. But my sister, who had no personal experience, naturally didn't believe that my aunt was really that fierce. Despite my mother's opposition, she threatened to jump off the building and forced my parents to move in. Not long after, my aunt learned about this when she returned to the village. Of course, I deliberately let it slip. From the live streaming link shared by my cousin, I could clearly see my sister's miserable state. Her hair, which was originally covered by a hat, had been torn into a mess, and a patch of her scalp was clearly visible. My sister, who had always had a pale face, now had a bright red face, which showed that she had been slapped quite a few times. There were still many muddy footprints on her clothes and pants. If my parents had seen my sister being bullied before, they would have rushed forward immediately. But this time, they couldn't even protect themselves. My aunt called some strong men from her natal family and threw all of my mother's and the others' things into the river. They also dragged the 3 of them to the big square in the village and beat them up in public. Regarding this, none of the villagers came out to stop it. Just because in our hometown, people are quite superstitious. They think that women with lochia are inauspicious. So women who are menstruating or haven't finished the confinement period are not allowed to go to other people's houses. Otherwise, it will be considered that they are deliberately transferring their misfortunes to others. My sister hadn't finished the confinement period yet. When everyone heard that she had moved into my aunt's house without notice while still having lochia, they were very disgusted with her behavior. I heard that her husband owes a lot of debt in the city. She must be trying to transfer her bad luck to Emma because she can't live well herself. How shameless. Such a vicious person should never be allowed to come back to the village in the future, lest she bring misfortune to us. When my mother heard everyone's comments, she choked and explained, Emma didn't know the village customs. We really couldn't afford it, so we had no choice but to do this. We really didn't have any bad intentions. Hearing this, my aunt crossed her arms and sneered. What do you mean by can't afford it? I remember you two had more than 100,000 yuan in fixed-term deposit in the bank. Taking it out would be more than enough to rent a house. I think you just want to harm my family. No, I didn't. My father and mother, who were pinned to the ground, shook their heads with bitter faces. When my sister heard that my parents still had a deposit in the bank, a look of hatred immediately appeared in her eyes. Why didn't you take out the money if you had it? You always said you loved me the most. Now you've made me be bullied. Is this how you are as parents? My sister turned the tables and publicly said that it was my mother who was jealous that my aunt was living a better life than her and deliberately incited her to move into the old house to harm my aunt's family's feng shui fortune. My aunt was so angry that she rushed over and kicked my mother a few more times. Seeing that my mother was beaten until she couldn't straighten up, my sister even laughed with schadenfreude. After my aunt vented her anger, she had my sister, my father, and my mother thrown out of the village. My sister was holding a small mirror, only caring about tidying her hair, not caring at all about the injuries of my father and mother. Little did she know that her selfishness would harm herself sooner or later. Back in the city, my sister immediately forced my mother to go to the bank to withdraw money. My parents had saved this money for their retirement. They wouldn't touch it unless in a desperate situation. Naturally, my mother didn't agree. However, my sister didn't get angry. Instead, she played with her hair and said with a smile, "If you don't give it to me today, you'll have to give it to me eventually." My mother was extremely scared. With no way out, she came to me, wanting to leave the bank book with me for safekeeping. I didn't want to get involved in their mess. I was worried that my crazy sister would target me again. I was hoping to leave a good impression on the professor during this period so that I could apply for an overseas exchange program. So I persuaded my mother. You know my sister's temper. If you don't give it to her now, it'll be too late when she goes crazy. My mother sobbed. Your sister doesn't care about your father and me at all for the sake of money. If I really give her the money, I'm afraid my end will be even more miserable. I rolled my eyes silently and said, my sister isn't divorced yet. If things really come to that, you can just send her back to Daniel's family. This is their problem. Why did you and Dad have to take it on? My mother sighed. She's the flesh that fell from my body after carrying her for 10 months. I can't just watch her go back to Daniel's family and be tortured to death by those heartless people. I can't bear it. My mother was hesitant and couldn't make up her mind. I was too lazy to deal with her anymore and hung up the phone directly. A few days later, my mother asked me angrily how to send my sister back to Daniel's family smoothly. What happened? Weren't you saying you couldn't bear to do it a few days ago? It's all because of your sister and Daniel, those two scoundrels. They tricked your cousin out of 10,000 yuan under the pretext of introducing him to a job, and then sold him to a shady company to work for months without pay. My mother showed me the scratches on her face made by my aunt and cried about how she gave birth to such an ungrateful daughter like my sister. Bad genes really seem to be hereditary. In my last life, my parents were so indifferent to my death. In this life, my sister watches indifferently as they suffer. She really outdoes the predecessors. They deserve it. After silently complaining in my heart, I put away my smile and gave my mother some advice. Just anonymously tell Daniel that my sister won the lottery and has a large sum of money. Daniel's family will surely come to pick her up. Then, under the pretext of withdrawing money, lead my sister to the agreed place. You and Dad can find a place to hide, and that'll be it. Hearing this, my mother was overjoyed. Our family still depends on you, the college-educated one. You're so smart. Your dad and I are counting on you from now on. Now that my sister is useless, they start counting on me. They wish. I worked hard to impress the professor, accompanied him to work on projects all over the place, and finally got the overseas exchange quota. During this time, my sister was also forcefully taken back by Daniel's family. My parents followed the method I taught and stayed in a neighboring city, not daring to show up. This went on for a month. Before I was about to go abroad, my parents told me that my sister was dying. The news was sent to my parents by Daniel, along with a video. In the video, my sister was lying on the bed with a deathly look. There were large and small blisters all over her body, as if she was infected with some serious disease. As soon as my parents heard this news, their anger vanished. They rushed to Daniel's family without delay and told me to come quickly too, so that I could at least see my sister for the last time. I was suspicious and asked my cousin, "When did you last see my sister?" My cousin replied almost instantly, "Just a week ago. Daniel brought your sister to my house looking for someone. They left angrily when they couldn't find your parents." What was my sister's condition like then? She was extremely strong. She even smashed my table. Fortunately, you were out of town. Otherwise, your sister might have eaten you alive. My cousin babbled on about my sister's appearance at that time. She didn't seem like she was going to die in a few days at all. Looking at the approaching boarding time, I chose to pursue a bright future instead of getting stuck in this mess and being dragged down until I rotted. If my parents wanted to take care of it, let them. Anyway, I wouldn't meddle in my sister's affairs anymore. It was half a month later when I finally got in touch with my cousin again after I had settled down abroad. When she answered my call, she said to me nervously, "Olivia, you'd better be prepared for what I'm going to say next." My heart skipped a beat. Judging from her tone, something big must have happened. After taking a deep breath, my cousin told me what had happened in the past month. The video Daniel sent that day was indeed fake. After Daniel's family took my sister back, they interrogated her every day about the whereabouts of the lottery money. My sister refuted that she didn't win the lottery and that they were being deceived. But Daniel and the others insisted that my sister was lying, so they started to physically abuse her for a while. After seeing that my sister was beaten until there was no good skin left on her body and she still insisted that she didn't win the lottery, Daniel's family realized they had been tricked. After my sister ate something and recovered a bit, she told Daniel that my mother had nearly 200,000 yuan in the bank book. She even volunteered to take out this money to help Daniel's family pay off their debts. Daniel was naturally happy to hear this. That's why there was the scene of them going to my cousin's house to smash things and look for people. Of course, my sister thought about looking for me. But I happened to accompany the professor to do a project that required confidentiality in another place, so the school didn't disclose any information about me to my sister. Having no other choice, she faked her death, hoping to draw my parents out. And as my sister expected, my parents went. As soon as they entered Daniel's house, they were tied up by the group. My sister vented all the violence that Daniel's family had inflicted on her onto my parents. After suffering from beatings and hunger, my father gave in. He was willing to go to the bank to withdraw money and give it to my sister as long as she didn't hurt their lives. To prevent my father from saying anything inappropriate during the process of going to the bank, my sister specially bought a kind of medicine and forced my father to take it. My sister threatened him that this medicine was a kind of virus. If he didn't get an injection of the antidote within a week, the virus would spread widely in his body. Eventually, he would die with his body festering all over and would be considered to have contracted some unknown infectious disease. My father didn't believe it at first. But on the second day after taking the medicine, blisters started to appear on his body and he felt unbearably itchy. In a panic, my father could only obediently go to the bank to withdraw money as my sister said. However, after getting the money, my sister didn't keep her promise. She not only didn't release my parents but also locked them up at home. Daniel's family was very happy to get the money and completely relaxed their vigilance against my sister, regarding her as one of their own who could be trusted. Little did they know that my sister bought rat poison and put it in the dishes, watching as the whole family ate without any precautions. In the past, she relied on family members even for trivial matters. Now, for such a major event as marriage, she naturally depends on us. My sister didn't spare our parents either. Resentful that they had money but didn't help and that they had heartlessly sent her to Daniel's family, she also forced them to eat the rat poison. After confirming that all the people she wanted to take revenge on were dead, my sister held the baby and took the money, preparing to escape. But no matter how carefully she calculated, she never expected that the debt collectors would come to the door at this time, leading to the exposure of her murder. Since they couldn't contact me, several relatives helped handle the funerals of my parents, and the remaining more than 100,000 yuan was kept by the police. To express my gratitude to the relatives for their help, I made a special trip back to my home country. I also dropped by the prison to visit my sister who was serving her sentence. The moment she saw me, my sister became extremely emotional. "You bitch, what are you laughing at? I should have chopped you into pieces and fed you to the fish in the sea." Seeing her in a sorry state and being unable to do anything to me, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. To provoke her, I deliberately told her, "Sis, actually I knew there was something wrong with Daniel's family a long time ago, but I deliberately didn't tell you. I just wanted to see what kind of retribution you would get, and it really lived up to my expectations." Olivia, go to hell. I'm going to kill you. My sister hysterically pounded on the glass, wishing she could rush out and kill me. Unfortunately, due to the heinous nature of her murder, she was sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve. She could only live in anger for 2 years. And all the property of our parents that she had been longing for until her death ended up in my pocket. In this life it feels so good to be alive.